A lot of people assume that for a lot of these children who fall into gender ideology, that the first moment they encounter it is like this dramatic moment where somebody is like instantly on the prowl. Whether a child learns about it from the internet or from a teacher, the indoctrination hurts them the same and usually leads to the same outcome of them first going through identity confusion and then going through the medical experimentation. The more I tried to fit in the mold, the more I just felt like I couldn't be a woman at all. And I thought, I'm never going to be beautiful. I am never going to be feminine. And I don't know why I'm trying anymore. So I just leaned a little bit more into being a tomboy, which I naturally kind of was. But I was 12 years old when I first learned this idea that I actually was a man, that these feelings, these thoughts defined who I was, that there are people out there who are born in the wrong body. And the only way that they can be helped is by undergoing basically medical experimentation for the rest of their life. And I was a very scientifically focused kid, so I was reading on like some of the papers, some of the like medical information on the so-called transgender community. But what really drew me in was seeing other kids my age who were going through basically all the same struggles word for word and thinking, I relate to them because I'm one of them. And I've finally found my path to happiness, and out of this confusion around who I am, this struggle to really adapt to the world, it's all because I was supposed to be a young man.
Wow. So it sounds like some of that, you discovered some of that through self-research, but also through watching some of your friends. Was that, we hear a lot today, like that this is taking place in schools. Like we've actually dealt with stuff where teachers kind of have closets where the kids come in, they teach some of this stuff, they kind of encourage, kids embracing maybe the idea at a young age that they feel like, oh, I'm a boy, I'm not really a girl, and then they reinforce that. Did you find that to be the case like when you were in school, or did that, you said self-research and your friends, but was that ever in the school system that you encountered other outside of that?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people assume that for a lot of these children who fall into gender ideology, that the first moment they encounter it is like this dramatic moment where somebody is like instantly on the prowl and preying on them and just like introducing all of these ideas to them at once. And that often is how it goes. There are a lot of children who first learn about this through school, through a school counselor, through a teacher pulling them aside and like having them hold secrets behind their parents' back. That's not how it happened for me personally, though. I learned about this pretty much entirely through the internet, through social media. I got my first phone at 11 or 12, which if there's any mistake my mom and dad did make, it was giving me electronic devices a little bit too early and allowing me to have basically unfettered internet access, which I don't blame them for, because a lot of parents assume, because they didn't really grow up with the dangers of the internet the way that my generation did, that children are going to have a hard time finding like adult content or anything that is remotely inappropriate for a kid. And they're just going to stick to their guns. They're going to stick to like the games they play or like talking with their friends. And for the most part, they do. But for me, it was a slow branching out of using Instagram and following my friends from school and following my interests through those communities that were based around things that I loved at that time, that were age appropriate, that were involved with like art, illustration, comics, music that I loved. A lot of those kids who were running those accounts or making those posts about those things also just so happened to be in the so-called LGBTQ community, and most of them being transgender. And it was through them just talking honestly about their lives and about their feelings about what they were learning, because kids will tend to, once they learn something, they'll repeat it to pretty much every other kid they know. That's just how kids work. That's how they socialize.
Right.
And that was how I was introduced to these ideas of sex and gender, or these two different things, that some people have one gender, but they just so happen to be born in the wrong body, and that there is such thing as a transgender child. And these ideas, I was basically student zero to all this. I didn't learn about it in school, but what I was being indoctrinated into is something that a lot of schools now are teaching in course material and even privately between teachers and staff to students. and it hurts
Yeah.
them. Whether a child learns about it from the internet or from a teacher, the indoctrination hurts them the same and usually leads to the same outcome of them first going through identity confusion and then going through the medical experimentation.
Wow. And you said growing up, like your parents, your siblings, like there was a lot of love there. Like, when did you actually approach your parents with this and like tell them? And then what did they do next? Like, what was their reaction?
I was always a very naturally shy kid. Even though I knew my mom and dad loved me very much, I just had a difficult time talking about anything that was intimate or deeply frustrating or scary to me. And this definitely was all of those things, these feelings they had around my body, around being female, and not really knowing how to, I don't know, how to follow my female role models. It took me a little bit of time of kind of thinking to myself in secret and first telling my sister about these feelings and cutting the hair more like shorter and more and slowly over time, just trying to adjust to this more masculine appearance and way of interacting with people before I tell people, hey, I'm actually a young man. I'm not a woman. I never was supposed to be. And I told my mom and dad about my gender confusion by writing a letter to them because I saw a kid on the internet doing the same thing. And it was something that gave us a little bit of space to think about, like, okay, what am I going to say back? What are we going to talk about? And when we finally did, I think they responded very appropriate given their lack of information on the subject. They didn't want to push me down any route. They certainly didn't want me making any long-term decisions at the age that I was, because I was 12 going on 13. And they just thought, okay, let's figure this out as a family. We're going to have you see a therapist because this is something that is kind of beyond our means, beyond our understanding. And we want to help you through what we really think is a mental health issue. And I think they're right in that. But even well-intentioned parents don't realize that the moment that they get an institution involved, they are very likely going to go up against their wishes as the parents and against the health of their child.
Wow. And I know that